I will just go ahead and start recording this, and then I will mute everybody. So then we'll get started. So feel free to start. And if you are able to mute yourself, please mute yourself. But if you don't know how to mute yourself, I will mute you. So that's just that. That's just it. Okay, great. So
Thanks, Lauren.
no
All
problem.
right, welcome everybody. So nice to see you. And those who don't have a camera on, nice you're there anyway. Yeah. So we're here today to share the life and times of Timothy Chung Chu. And Sil did such a great job of laying the groundwork with doing Thomas Foon Chu. So we hope to add to the legacy here. I am reading some notes, everybody, because there's lots of stuff. So please don't mind me. Also, thanks to Glow and Malcolm and Lauren, always, who you're dedicating a lot of time and energy to getting these gatherings going. I think it's been, for me, really important to be able to do this on a regular basis. I'm seeing all of you more often than I would otherwise in the non-pandemic. So and a couple of you, those of you that sent in some memories, thank you. We received way more than I'm going to be able to include, which I guess is a good thing. But I did have to edit down, so pardon us. And you all perhaps saw Sally's note, even though Tom and Sally and I put this together because of her Wi-Fi being a little iffy. She's kind of far away. She's asked Tom and I to speak on her behalf. So I think we are ready to get started. My one caveat is this man, Tim Chu, lived a long life. One of the issues is that there's all kinds of gaps in some of what we're going to say. So, and it might even be inaccurate. And some of you may know how to correct me, but let's do that later anyway. So here we go. Let's start with the many faces of Timothy Chu. Dad was born in Alviso, California, April 16th, 1924. Yeah, that would have been yesterday. Happy belated birthday, Dad. Rather than approaching his life in a typical chronological order, we thought we might be a little bit more interesting if we did this in a way looking at his relationships to others, his accomplishments, and his passions. 15 different aspects of his life. So we'll start with Tim Chu, the student, and a nod to Malcolm. I did not do this pretty graphic and all of this. Malcolm, thanks so much for being the one who gave us this header slide. Uh, Dad, loved school. Being the youngest of 6 Chu children, he was a solid student. At least that's what he told me. I believe he attended Commodore Stockton Elementary School in Chinatown. We see him here at around age 10. Getting around with crutches after his surgeries for polio must have been a challenge, but from his face, he seems pretty happy. I believe this is 8th or ninth grade class picture. Since the handwritings are all different, I believe it must have been the way that they signed their own name on directly on the photograph. And there's Dad, the red oval, third row. He attended Galileo High School, which still stands proudly at the corner of Van Ness and Francisco Streets. He would tell me how much he enjoyed being involved with student government, and I believe he was president of his class senior year. He began his college years at UCLA, since UC Berkeley didn't offer undergraduate classes level yet. His sister Ethel attended UCLA, so she paved the way. He transferred to UC Berkeley for his junior year and graduated with a Bachelor's of Science degree in mechanical engineering. In exchange for meals, Dad washed dishes at one of the sorority houses. Due to his polio, he didn't go into the military service. Instead, he worked in the naval shipyards late into the night since he was in school during the day. While at Cal, Dad made it onto Berkeley's boxing team. He was the first Asian American to do so. Given that one of his legs was nearly 2 inches shorter due to his polio, I really admired him a great deal, trying to imagine how difficult it must have been to balance while throwing punches and avoiding getting punched. He shared his skills and experience by holding clinics at the Y in Chinatown. He also joined the Phi Beta Kappa fraternity, the only Asian frat at that time, and continued association with them long after he graduated. When we lived in Mill Valley, I remember he and Mom hosting some students from the Pi Alpha Phi fraternity for afternoon barbecues. This is a photo of his pledge class, that is, those joining the fraternity in 1946. There he is in the gold oval. His first job out of college, he joined a real estate company, likely through a classmate, that focused on the Berkeley area. Being his affable self, he did well, but he felt guilty not using his degree in engineering, so he went to work for the state of California in the department that inspected elevators and boilers. He told me they paid him a third of what he was making in real estate, and he did find the work tedious, but he felt better using his degree. Interesting, right? For how long he continued in this job, I can't recall, but we'll pick up his careers later on. Next, we'll shift to Tim Chu, the family man, starting with his role as a son and son-in-law. With his siblings being older and more independent, Yan Yan could focus on her baby, the one who had to learn to deal with challenges of polio. He was a very devoted son, following in all familial traditions. And his mom was very important to him. He grieved deeply when she passed. As son-in-law, he was also very good to Mom's mom, Hazel Cummings. She adored Timmy, as she would call him. Here they enjoyed an afternoon at a beach near Bangkok in 1951. The grandmothers met for the first time in San Francisco when I was born and shared a unique bond. For while I wasn't the very first grandchild for either of them, the two of them had never had an in-law from such a different culture than their own. Dad's charm went on to win over Sally's parents, Margaret and Ray Grimsey, who lived in Perth, Australia. All four of them were great pals and enjoyed one another's company immensely. By the way, Sally, how did Dad talk your mom into holding that umbrella? I tell you. Next, Tim Chu as a brother and brother-in-law. Being brother to four sisters and having two brothers himself, Dad had plenty of experience in these roles. But let's start with a review of the family members. And thanks, Sil, for sharing your picture of this photo. And this one even includes the birth years that she sent. So back row, left to right, Auntie Tidy, Lonnie, Uncle Charlie. And front row, Francis, Yan Yan, Ethel, Gung Gung's mother, Gung Gung, Tim, and Uncle Hank. I need to add a side note here. When Tom and I were young, we couldn't understand why some of our cousins didn't seem to know Yan Yan's name. They called her Papa. We came to understand. Unlike English, when it's your dad's mom, it's Yan Yan. Your mom's mom is Papa. Mystery solved. Here's Yan Yan with her boys, taken early in the 1960s, I'm guessing. Left to right, we have Uncle George, Uncle Paul, Uncle Charlie, and Uncle Patrick. Then Dad and Uncle Hank. Here, one of the many large birthday parties for her, often exceeding 100 guests. Now, Dad loved all four of his sisters. Like Grandma, they had all been incredibly good to him, their baby brother. Ethel was closest in age. They shared many a good time over the years, both living the longest as brother and sister. Now, Tim Chu, the husband. Mom and Dad met in Bangkok in the summer of 1950. Back then, Bangkok had a very small American community. Mom's father headed the Food and Agriculture Organization, the FAO, for the UN, all of Southeast Asia. Mom came to live with her parents after recovering from back surgery that ended her nurse's training in Boston. Dad was in Bangkok because, well, we'll say a little bit more about that later. They married in Bangkok in 1952 and came to San Francisco in the fall of 1953, Mom's first trip to a city west of Indiana. From personal experience, marriages sometimes don't work out, as was the case for our parents. In 1978, they divorced. Dad made the best of being a bachelor again, hosting some good parties, as the stories go, in his flat overlooking the South China Sea in Hong Kong. Little did he know the best part of his life was yet to come. Just how did Dad and Sally meet? Through a mutual friend, Dr. Norman Hing. Norman knew that Sally was planning a trip to Hong Kong, so he suggested that they meet. They were married in December 18, 1983, at a friend's home in Pasadena. It was an intimate group, Tom and I and some close friends, but a great celebration. There's much more to come about this happy marriage. Now, Tim Chu, the uncle, the granduncle, and nephew. With 5 siblings, Dad was fortunate to have 11 nieces and nephews. Some of them sent me memories of Dad. First, Patricia. She says, Uncle Tim was 12 years older than me. I vaguely remember he was growing bean sprouts in the bathtub in the downstairs apartment. And I remember Uncle Tim's jalopy with his rumble seat stuffed with a group of college friends. There was also a rumor that he had a girlfriend, but Grandma didn't approve because she wasn't Chinese. She was Korean. When I read this, Auntie Pat, I could only wonder how Grandma felt when she met our mom, but that's another story. And from Sylvia, Uncle Tim, with his partners, opened a pharmaceutical plant on Clay Street between Powell and Stockton. He hired me. I lasted 1 day on the assembly line, filling pills, then the rest of the summer as a telephone receptionist. That was my first desk job in 1956. I also remember his pink and black Cadillac with pink leather interior. It was beautiful. I remember that car too. Another was when Uncle Tim and Auntie Cece hosted a Sweet 16 birthday party for me in Mill Valley, my first real birthday party. Gloria sent, I think I could learn a thing or two from relationships from Uncle Tim. He has friends who he has known since he was a child and new friends from his block. This takes special talent to maintain these kinds of ties. He's deeply engaged with the lives of his family and friends. Uncle Tim lived to celebrate life. And from Paula, she sent me, here's my most unforgettable moment with Uncle Tim. It was 1971. I was a freshman at Davis, and your dad came down to pick me up for the weekend. He knew that dorm food was almost like Army food, so when we arrived at your house, he had made several Chinese comfort food favorites, pork hash with salt, steamed watercress with shrimp paste, and steamed fish. I was in heaven and so sad when I had to go back to the dorm. It was a delightful weekend. Janet says, there are so many fond memories. Your dad was like a second dad to me. I remember my trips to Hong Kong, rides in the Rolls Royce, flying first class to Bangkok, eating the freshest seafood right out of the tanks. Food has always been an important part to the Chu family and to my Lim side. Philip sent me this photo and said, best uncle I had ever. Wish I had more. So thanks, cousins, for sharing all of these. With 11 nieces and nephews, Dad also had 17 grandnieces and nephews. Lauren says, I remember that many dinner party gatherings at Uncle Tim's. We would all sit at the table with the inlaid Lazy Susan, holding plates and plates of Chinese food. A Chinese food dinner at Uncle Tim's house wasn't complete without scotch and white wine, and Uncle Tim bringing up memories from his past. There's more to Lauren's story we'll come back to later. Now, Tim is a nephew. I have no idea how many aunts and uncles had, and I'm sure, Patrick, if I'd asked you, you would have been able to tell me. But this is a photo of Seipa, fourth auntie, who was Yun Yun's younger sister, lived in Chinatown, and attended all of the Yun Yun's parties and other family gatherings. Next, Tim Chu, the dad and dad-in-law. Here are some older photos and some not so older photos. Throughout our years with Dad, he was passionate about helping us grow and learn and thrive. You'll hear examples in upcoming segments. He loved Tom and I, that was for sure. Now, as son-in-law, Joe and I enjoyed many adventures with Dad and Sally. This one's at the Shatin racetrack. A lot of good dinners. And here's a story about Dad and Scotch from Joe. One of the greatest gifts in being in Tim's circle was the many experiences and teachings that he easily and readily shared with those he loved. Travel, cooking, food, fishing, smoking cigars, and Black Label Scotch. Very early, Tim advised me that bourbon or rye was okay. Whiskey, if it was the only thing available, and Scotch, That was a gift from the gods. Over the first 10 years of my acquaintance as his son-in-law, I drank many glasses of Black Label with him. By the second 10 years, I was introduced to Johnnie Walker Blue. I guess he thought I wasn't ready for the experience, or he wasn't ready to share Blue Label given the high price point. Smart man. Tim, in his wise way, explained no one actually needed anything more than Black Label. It was the perfectly balanced scotch. Unless, of course, someone else was giving it as a gift or paying for it. Then it was an acceptable substitute. I have been an avid scotch drinker ever since, and I thank him for that, says Joe. Always a very good time with a really interesting and charming man who I will miss forever. Next, a daughter-in-law memory from MJ that Tom will read. So, Lauren, we're going to unmute Tom. Over to you, Tom.
Okay, thanks, Robin. Great introduction and first session. This is from my wife. For Tim's 94th birthday, Tom and I drove to San Francisco to have lunch with Tim and Robin on the Embarcadero. I was a designated driver and put the restaurant address in my car navigation. There was a lot of detours that day. The car nav system kept rerouting me, so Tom, sitting in the back seat, started up his phone nav. Meanwhile, Tim is sitting next to me and says, I've never been this way to the restaurant. So I was trying to get there on time to meet Robin with 3 navigators telling me where to go. We eventually made it there safe for a great lunch with a view of the Bay Bridge.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, MJ. So, from dad and dad-in-law over to Tim Chu the Gung Gung. Tim has 3 granddaughters, Jamie and Mary, Tom's daughters, and our daughter, AJ. Jamie says, I feel so lucky that I had Gung Gung in my life as I was growing up. He influenced my outlook on life and helped mold me to the person I am today. I believe his diligence and optimism are traits that he instilled in me, and I credit him with a preference for hands-on work. He was always building something. He was my link to my Chinese heritage, and I will always remember Chinese New Year with him in San Francisco, especially when I was young and terrified of firecrackers and dragons at the parade. For Chinese New Year celebrations, I remember Sally and Gungun would prepare hot pot. This is one of my favorite meals. Sitting around his dining room table, sharing that meal, I was blown away. And looking back, I can appreciate how much care and attention and love went into preparing all of those ingredients. Gungung made me appreciate Chinese cooking and helped me break out of my pickiness. I was such a picky eater when I was young. Yeah, you really were. I remember, Jamie. My love and appreciation of great cooking is largely because of Gungung. Mary says, Gungung was a true family man who cared immensely for his granddaughters. He was always invested in and encouraged our education, our school grades, and later for me to achieve magna cum laude in college. But it wasn't always about academics. He wanted us to be well rounded. So at a young age, he taught us to play poker and smoke cigars. Notice everyone, the cigars are in backwards and the wrappers are still on the cigars. You didn't think he was actually going to sacrifice any of those fine Philippine cigars that Larry Yu would send to him. Mary continues. He consistently instilled an appreciation for world exploration by sharing their experiences from their many travels. In fact, Sally and Gungung took Jamie and me with them to Thailand. It was a trip I will always remember. Thank you, girls. AJ lives in Chicago, but happens to be here with me in Santa Rosa. So she's going to speak for herself. Over to you, H.
Excuse the mic transition, everybody. I everything has been so lovingly covered, especially by my 2 cousins. The one thing I think would be remiss to not mention is that I would say Gung Gung was really cool. He's like the OG. If you know what being an OG is, the original gangster. I feel like he was the OG of my family. Always very stylish, always threw a good party, and always a good time. And really taught me how to live life. I feel like my grandpa was also very meticulous and passionate about certain things. And I had flown, if any of you know me well, you know that I'm a horrible flyer. I get very ill, and it's not pretty, but it's worth it for the world travel experience. And we had traveled over my Christmas break from boarding school to Australia. And it had been a very long flight, and I felt like a cat who had just taken a very long bath, and I was not doing well. And we got to the apartment, and he felt it necessary to, while I was super jet lagged and not able to really stand, tell me a long story about a project he was working on. And this project required certain parts that he did not feel were cost effective to purchase in either Australia or the United States. So he went to Saigon to purchase the parts, which was quite an effort for just some parts, but there you go. And at the end of this story, it was probably a 10-minute long story, and he got to the end of it, and he said, so I'm working on this thing, and I get the wood, and I finally get it there, and I got all my parts, and I cut the wood. And I said, that's good. And that kind of pride and celebration for good work is something that I take with me in every single day of my life. I wouldn't work as hard at my job and to do things well if I didn't have him as my grandpa, my inspiration to work hard and also play hard. Anyway, I love him.
All right, onward. So nice to have her here with me. I'm getting kind of spoiled. She's been here since September. Okay. AJ also and Jamie and Mary experienced learning how to smoke cigars from Dad when we made a trip to Tahoe. And so we have the progression here. What you can't see in Mary's picture is shortly before she had tried the cigar, she'd also had her first sip of Black Label, and that went spitting out of her mouth. So the cigar was not anything much better, but he did have influence on these granddaughters, that's for sure. So several references have been made to Dad and his love of food. So next we'll look at Tim Chu, the chef, the foodie, and the food critic. No question, Dad loved to cook and share his cooking knowledge with us. Fortunately, Sally is also an accomplished chef. So between the two of them, many fantastic meals. He also loved to eat pretty much anything, anywhere. And of course, enjoying libations that matched that particular cuisine, including buying moonshine in Laos. See those water bottles? Yep, that's moonshine. Literally enjoying different kinds of cuisines all around the world. And boy, when he got to Acapulco, he looks like he hadn't eaten in several days. He looks starving. And I think that is a goat in that picture, right, Sally? Wow. Crab? Oysters, anyone? Oh, and don't forget the stoli. Janet shares this food memory. 2 years ago, we celebrated Uncle's birthday at Mr. Jiu's, the Michelin star contemporary Chinese restaurant located in Chinatown, formerly the Four Seasons restaurant where Grandma and Fourth Auntie would host their birthday parties. Each dish was beautifully prepared and plated. The food was yummy. We all had a good time, but I'm sure Gungung was thinking, that Uncle was thinking, small portions. And how much was that dish again? But we all had a good time. Now, all of these are photographic proof that Dad was, in fact, a foodie. Now, onto the side of him as food critic. So I'm going to turn this over back to Tom.
Okay, thanks, sister. In 2019, MJ and I went to have lunch with Dad and Sally up the hill at Harbor Villa. Dad specifically wanted to eat later to avoid the noisy lunch hour. Anyway, we basically had the place to ourselves, and we had what I thought to be a satisfactory lunch. But what do I know? Dad said the green bean dish was too salty, so he sent it back. The second dish was better, and I thought we were safe. Well, after we were finished eating, Dad called for the busboy and quietly said something in his ear. The busboy left, and Sally asked Dad, "And what did you say?" He dropped his head and he said, "I told him I want to speak to the head chef. He doesn't know how to use a wok." As Sally exclaims, "Sorry, not today, maybe tomorrow." The head chef never came out. It was too funny. When Sally needed to go to Perth in 2017 and Dad was unable to go because of his health, I agreed to have him stay with me. Well, I'm not the best Chinese food chef by no means, actually not very good, I'm sorry to say. So Dad tried to school me and I did my best, yet he attempted to wok cook on my electric stove with not so good results. Whenever he put his bottom lip out, it wasn't good. Next, I'll read one of MJ's memories about her early adventures in food with Dad. She calls it the initiation. My second family dim sum meal was after Auntie Ethel's funeral. When Tim and Sally arrived, Sally said to me, "You sit next to him, he's grumpy." So I sat next to Tim with Janet on my other side. Well, I heard Tim say to Janet, "Let's initiate her." I wondered what that meant and soon found out. Tim, the ever gracious server, made sure I got the chicken head, the chicken feet, intestines, and other things I had no idea what they were, let alone not willing to put in my mouth. Needless to say, I was going hungry until Tom finally noticed my situation and helped me with the items he thought I might like. I did not go hungry despite Tim and Janet's best efforts, LOL. Back to Robin.
Thanks, Tom. Dad's other passion was enjoying the company of family and friends by being a great host and a real party guy. Now, I have very vivid memories of hosting their friends from around the world. By age 7, I could find my way around SFO, having met many an airplane from many countries far and near, Canada, China, Thailand, Sri Lanka, to name a few. As a host, Jamie sent me this from memory. First thing I think of Gung Gung and Sally's place in San Francisco and the parties and get-togethers he and Sally hosted. Even a simple day trip to San Francisco. I look forward to it immensely. Starting with a doorbell that had a video and voice, I thought that was the coolest thing. I can still hear his voice coming through the speaker and the loud buzzing of the door as it unlocked, the long walk up the staircase, the way he and Sally would greet us as we arrived, and his little bar where we would sit and catch up. I mixed my first alcoholic drink at that bar and served it to Gung Gung, a Johnny Walker, I think with water, maybe ice, and of course the view from the balcony where we would sit. Often he would have a cigar and we would chat. Those conversations didn't seem profoundly important at the time, but they are such great cherished memories when I reflect on them. So many memories were made there. Every year, we attended the Christmas parties at their house, initially with people I didn't know, but over the years, I came to know them all as family. Memories of good times in their living room resonate with many of us, I imagine. Dad always seemed happiest when he was surrounded by people he cared for. As hosts, he and Sally were country agnostic, meaning they would gather people together wherever they went. Here we have Sally, her mom, and Susan, a lifelong friend from grade school. Thank goodness Margaret has an elbow to lean on. Keeping up with these three is a challenge from my own experience. Another passion of Dad's was fishing. Yep, that's a real piranha caught on the Amazon River. And here's Tom and Dad in the Sea of Cortez. Check out that sailfish. Janet sent this photo saying, Uncle Tim loved to fish and he loved to cook. His fish head soup was one of my favorites, and so were his bone broths. He made them way before it became trendy. Many a fishing trip, often with Pete Hom, his favorite fishing buddy. They fished literally all around the world. And next, a topic that Malcolm teased us with. Tim Chu, the spy. Lots has been storied about Dad and his time in the CIA. He didn't even tell Tom and me until I was in my 20s. Do you remember Lauren's story about Dad at the dining table, bringing up his memories of the past? Well, here's the rest of her story. Uncle Tim would chat freely about his time in the CIA. I was always intrigued growing up that someone would talk so upfront about working for the CIA. He would talk about how he was sent to Asia because they needed people there who were Asian, because the non-Asian employees would stick out like a sore thumb, therefore unable to build relationships, which Uncle Tim prided himself on, his ability to make friends wherever he went. Well, here's the story he told me, at least what I remember. His mission for the CIA was focused on gathering intelligence on post-war communist activity in Southeast Asia to stop the domino effect of communist incursion. He was dispatched to Bangkok under the guise of being a pharmaceutical representative. He was perfect. He spoke a little Thai, and as Lauren noted, did not stick out like a sore thumb. He was extra perfect for the assignment of observing the goings-on in the Taiwanese embassy to Thailand, who happened to be head by the ambassador, Patrick Peachy's son. Sound familiar? Yep, Patrick's son happened to be married to Dad's eldest sister, Lonnie. That's right, he was to spy on his brother-in-law. Fast forward to the day that Uncle Pat and Auntie Lonnie found out. Chloe tells me she thought they threw Dad out of the house because he'd given her an extravagant gift that day, not wanting him to spoil her. Well, poor Glo, little did she know. In fact, she says she didn't even know the real story until Dad's 88th party. Sally tells me Chim never knew why he was suddenly ejected from the embassy, but as it was so sudden, he assumed Patrick had found out. It was never spoken of directly. Not good to have a CIA operative living under your roof. And I'm guessing that this picture of Lonnie and Dad, Mom, and Patrick was probably taken before they found out. I don't know how it all ended, nor how much longer he stayed in the CIA. I got a chuckle out of this invitation from the Queen of Thailand to an event to celebrate the 200 years of affection amongst the Thai people for the US. Do you think she knew that Dad was working for the US government? Wish I had more stories, but on we go. One of Dad's passion that Tom, Mom, Sally, and I benefited was from him being the builder, Mr. Fix-It, and often the penny pincher. After moving from San Francisco to Mill Valley, Dad built us a swimming pool with a change room and shower. Mom had been a swimming teacher and a water ballet instructor, so they both wanted us to grow up enjoying the water. And to this day, I still love to swim. We both remember him driving a bulldozer that dug a hole. Yeah, a little mini bulldozer. And adjacent, he built that changing room. He also built us a playhouse and a 6-by-5-foot sandbox with a hinged top to keep the cats out. When we moved to Sacramento, Dad built all the garage shelving and a massive patio roof. For Auntie Fran and Uncle George, he made a really nice black vinyl padded bar for their bonus room. And as mentioned about Young Young's Powell Street apartment building, Dad and Tom remodeled all the bathrooms and electrical outlets. This captures Dad's annual visual to a neighborhood Ace Hardware. This particular store on your birthday would give you the percentage off matching your age. So imagine the delight of this frugal man once he turned 50, 70, 80. Now, here's a story from Tom. Dad's second happiest place, after the kitchen and the bar that he always saw as one place, was his small workshop in the garage. When Dad and Sally acquired a second car, it was too tight a fit to get both in the garage. Dad still wanted his workbench, no denying that. So MJ saw on Pinterest a fold-up workbench that would easily be out of the way when not used. Great. So Dad futzed with a design and sends the plans to Joe and me. After a few versions and solving his last issue, there aren't any legs on it. We planned a work day to convert his old bench into a fold-up. Took all day, but we were successful. And a story from Joe. While in the company of Tim, there was often a project to complete. One such project was to create hooks for his belts and straps attached to the rail that would attach to the side of the mahogany bookcase. Tim had collected 5 little screws with screws on their ends. Not sure from where, but that was often the case with Tim. He was an avid saver of bits. He was excited to use a piece of pine, 1 by 2 by 24 inches that he'd saved. He stated, "I don't want any nails or screws to show. I want you to make the pine match the mahogany. And I should probably watch you do this to make sure it's to spec. Of course, I said. Do we have any screws or nails or stain? I asked. Of course, he said. Down in my workshop in the garage. We just have to find them. So down we went. I must say, many of my favorite memories with Tim was in his workshop. He always had everything boxed in old Altoid containers, labeled by size and type and organized for easy reference. Why was this my favorite? Because here you could see his attention to detail, his creativity, and his ingenious methods of never letting anything go to waste. And a nod to Sally, who's an angel for ensuring that Tim could always have a space like this to fulfill his creative soul. After 2 hours of hunting for the right screws, the stain, the paintbrush, we spent another 30 minutes discussing and deciding how far apart the screws had to be for maximum hanging capacity. It took 3 coats of stain with drying time in between. However, that gave us plenty of time to talk about his adventures and escapades. Armed with a drill, we proceeded upstairs to attach the wood strip. The hooks, as Tim had planned, were perfectly spaced, and the stain color matched remarkably exact. It was another amazing project and a wonderful afternoon with Tim that I will remember forever. Sally shares, there are so many stories, but this is the one that had a long cause and effect, which inconvenienced Mr. T. Chu also. We wanted to remodel our Perth bathroom and laundry. Mr. Cheap found a Chinese guy in the want ads. He came in way below anyone else's quote, which I thought was suspicious from the start. They arrived and ripped everything out without protecting for dust, debris, etc. Huge mess. Then they disappeared. We finally reached the guy again, and he said he couldn't come back for a month. So for 6 weeks, we had to take the lift to a neighbor's place on the 14th floor. We were on the 10th for showers and to do laundry. I was not happy. After the original guy's disappearance, Tichu told his lovely Italian barber that I was seriously PO'd with him. And just Tim's luck, the barber said his nephew, Marco, was a professional tiler. Marco did a great but painstakingly detailed job. Tim had measured everything and calculated how much tile, etc. we would need. Big joke, that doesn't work in the real world. I had to make 5 additional trips to the tile company and hardware stores for supplies, but we finally ended up with something that made me quite happy. Now over to Tom to talk about Tim Chu, the inventor and entrepreneur.
Sorry, I'm just laughing too hard. Poor Sally, no bathroom for 6 months. Oh, good Lord. Okay, Tim Chu, inventor, entrepreneur. Tim Chu was an entrepreneur, dabbled in many things. He designed and built many of the conveyor systems in his old pharmaceutical plant in Chinatown that Sylvia mentioned earlier. Tim Chu projects. I recall him inventing and involved with many gadgets such as industrial directional explosives in Taiwan, but sadly the typhoon destroyed the pilot plant, a multi-tortilla taco fryer rack, a 6-skewer shish kebab rack driven by your barbecue rotisserie motor, fortune cookie machines, electronic conditioner for boiler water treatment, hinged chopsticks, decorative Asian tiles, gourmet ice cream, the Holly brand in Taiwan, and one such venture was the Aki blow mold, plastic blow molding machines, here seen with partner Banny Tan from Hong Kong. As sales representatives, Tim and Sally traveled to far places where trade shows displayed the machines and sold them. And finally, Sally can confirm that one of the final projects was the desalination machines for producing potable water from the sea. Back to Robin to talk about
Tim Chu, the banker. Thanks, Tom. In about 1961, one of Dad's friends, Paul Louis, wanted Dad to join him at a new bank in Chinatown, the Bank of Trade. He was following the footsteps of his sister Fran, who was the assistant branch manager of the Bank of America branch in Chinatown. They wanted to expand the bank eventually, so Dad took up the role of manager in the new branch in Sacramento, 1963. In the early 70s, an old acquaintance from Thailand, Johnny Ma, contacted Dad. Johnny was an interesting character, married to one of the many princesses of the royal Thai family. He owned the Asia Trust Bank in Bangkok, as well as a TV station and many other things. That's Johnny in the middle, the princess on the other side. He offered Dad a director's position to open up and run a finance office in Hong Kong, representing the Asia Trust Bank. Mom and Dad moved to Hong Kong, and for 15 plus years, maybe 20, Dad and eventually Sally lived a good life. Dad also was involved in different organizations, and I remember very well Dad's banker buddies who loved to goof. Sally has many tales to tell about her experiences over the years with Johnny and Dad, but for another time. Next, a very different role. Tim Chu, the motorcycle racing sponsor. Over to you, Tom. Are you on mute, my brother?
Hello.
Hello.
Motorcycle racing sponsor, the Macau GP, known as Grand Prix. When I started motorcycle road racing in 1975, my parents had been living in Hong Kong, and my dad kept inviting me out for a trip. Come see the Orient. Well, after many tries, he dangled some bait. Hey, Tom, there's a motorcycle race over here in Macau once a year. Maybe we can make something happen for you to race there and come see the Orient. So that was an offer I couldn't refuse. And after Dad connected with the sole agent for Yamaha in Hong Kong, I was able to first race there in 1976, coming in second with a great finish my first time there. It was very motivating for me and the Yamaha dealer to continue. And with Dad's help, I was blessed to race there 5 times, winning in 1980. And there are so many more stories within these topics that I never knew or have now forgotten. Thanks for showing the way, Dad.
Thanks, Tom. I remember that day very, very clearly, and it was very exciting. Macau had never looked like a motorcycle racing to me, but there it was. On to the next passion that Dad shared with Sal. Tim Chu, the traveler. By this time, you know that these two traveled more than most people and to a wide variety of countries. I asked Sally how many countries they visited, and she said, well, you guys guess. Oh, sorry, you're on mute. 60 countries. And then she added, but I may have missed 1 or 2. Can you imagine the number of photos they have? Don't worry, we're not going to share all of them, just a select few to give you an overview of their travels. So we've got Malaysia, Italy, Calgary, which is north of Perth, the Great Wall, Dunhuang Desert in China, Xinjiang, China. Sally says Tim was willing to take a ride on anything, and Bali, Mount Everest, Vietnam. Sally says here we see him negotiating the best price for his little trip. On safari in Kenya, houseboating in Zimbabwe, and I think another safari in Namibia. Cambodia, Turkey, and good old New Orleans. Here they're dressed to the nines to match. Panama, Laos, and Bhutan. And then this photo. It's taken in Singapore. I asked Sally, is there a specific reason for this photo? There's lots of other
Yes.
places in Singapore to shoot. She
I know
replied
that.
Dad was happy following all of their travel to meet this French masseuse. He was
Mhm.
tired, I guess. Now, I think also you're guessing, and as AJ said, the man knew how to work hard and play hard, but he also knew how to relax and enjoy life. My father did enjoy a good glass of bubbly and mastered the art of drinking while exercising, which then generally inspired a nap. He loved his time in his Perth man cave. Sally, is that a toilet he's sitting on? Or enjoying a scotch and cigar with Susan. and always cheering on the Eagles, his favorite Australian football team, with his appropriately clad bear. I think the bear won the bet on that game, didn't he? Now for the final segment, Sally feels that this brief video fits this occasion. Please watch and listen to the song. It's coming. So's Christmas.
Auntie Robin, it's not playing the sound.
Ah, yes, yes, yes. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Share sound. That's an important thing to do. Thank you, Lauren. Take it from the top.
Dum 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 dum. Dum 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 dum. Dum 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 dum.
Here's to the ones that we got. Cheers to the wish you were here, but you're not. 'Cause the dreams bring back all the memories of everything we've been through. Close to the ones here today. Close to the ones that we lost on the way. 'Cause the dreams bring back all the memories. And the memories bring back you. There's a time that I remember when I did not know no pain. When I believed in forever and everything would stay the same. Now my heart feel like December when somebody say your name. 'Cause I can't reach out to call you, but I know I will one day, yeah.
Everybody hurts sometimes, everybody hurts someday, yeah.
But everything will be alright. Go as your voice will say, hey. Here's to the ones that we got. Cheers to the wish you were here, but you're not. 'Cause the dreams bring back all the memories of everything we've been through. Close to the ones here today. Close to the ones that we lost on the way. 'Cause the dreams bring back all the memories. And the memories bring back you. Do 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 do. Memories bring back you. There's a time that I remember when I never felt so lost. When I felt that all the hatred was too powerful to stop. Now my heart feels like an ember, and it's lighting up the dark. I'll carry these torches for you, but you know I'll never drop. Yeah.
Everybody hurts sometimes, everybody hurts someday, hey, hey.
But everything gon' be alright.
Go and raise your voice and say, hey.
Here's to the ones that we got. Cheers to the wish you were here, but you're not. 'Cause the dreams bring back all the memories of everything we've been through. Close to the ones here today. Close to the ones that we lost on the way. 'Cause the dreams bring back all the memories. And the memories bring back you. Do 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 do. Memories bring back you. Do 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 do. Memories bring back you. Do 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 Memories bring back you. Here's to the one we got. Cheers. Memories bring back you. Here's to the one. Here Memories bring back you. Memories bring back you.
Oh, Boy, what a fitting song. An amazing talents, honestly. Sally, thanks for sharing that. Well, we can't thank you enough for joining us today. We hope you've learned something new, and even those of you who've known Dad all of your lives, we're happy to stay on. I am, at least. If anyone has any questions or wants to chat, it did take up almost the full hour. So thank you for hanging in. Keep safe and well, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Great job, Robin, Tom,
Oh.
Sally. That was lovely.
Really nice.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
That was great.
Great.
That's really nice. Thanks.
Thanks for joining, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, Robin. Fantastic.
Fabulous.
So let's see. I guess we don't have our next one scheduled quite yet, but I imagine our lovely cousins are going to take care of that for us.
Who's on the docket? Oh, Auntie Paula.
Yeah, I'm thinking Paula.
Auntie Paula is up next.
Actually, I'm gonna do the June one.
Okay.
June.
Oh, good.
Then
So maybe Malcolm.
Uncle Malcolm.
Share
Ooh.
photos.
Great.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Our photographer, please.
I'll be happy to do it.
Thank you.
Oh,
Yes,
great.
thank you. Thank you.
Oh, we just need to pick a date, right?
Right.
Well, we'll send an email once that
Thank
gets
you.
figured out.
Thank you. Thank you. That's great. So, Patrick, I bet you know how many aunts and uncles my dad had, huh?
Way too many to count on here
Oh,
right
good.
now.
Okay, good. Thank you. Oh dear, oh dear. Sally, how did you find that song? I've not seen that.
I'm trying to think. Somebody, I know Deanna's niece sent it to me from Philadelphia when things were locked down over there.
Yeah, yeah. Boy, it was
Beautiful.
so much talent. You know, I've seen some of these on, people being able to be in all these different parts of the world and they're able to. Jamie, did that make you want to play violin again? Oh, good. Well, everyone, thanks again. We haven't had dinner and here it's 8 something, so I'm going to sign off myself, but can't thank you all enough. Sally, for all the pictures, all of you who sent memories. Thank you much.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you,
You did a
Robin.
great
Thank you.
job.
Great job. Great job, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Thank you.
See you all next time.
Okay.
Yes, that was
Cheers.
fantastic, Robin.
Good
Thank
show,
you.
Robin.
I didn't come out.
Well done.
Good job.
Absolutely. It was
Thank
super.
you. Thank you.
So nice. Right.
I'm reading some of the different chats that people sent. Oh, good. Thank you. All right, guys, dinner time. Got to feed the family, important part of our lives, right? I am a chew.
Bye, everybody.
Okay, bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Robin.
Thank you, Robin.
That was awesome.